Blessed is Jesus.
While Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. "The one that I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus replied,
"Friend, do what you came for."
Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Jesus said to him,
"Put your sword back in its place, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way?"
Then Jesus said to the crowd,
"Am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled."
Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
Blessed is Jesus.
Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, "This fellow said, 'I'm able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days.'" Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus replied,
"Yes, it is as you say. But I say to all of you, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven."
Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look, now you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" "He is worthy of death," they answered. Then they spit in his face and struck him with their fists. Others slapped him and said, "Prophesy to us, Christ. Who hit you?" Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee," she said. But he denied it before them all. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Then he went out to the gateway, where another girl saw him and said to the people there, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth. He denied it again with an oath, "I don't know the man." After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, "Surely you are one of them, for your accent gives you away." Then he began to call down curses on himself, and he swore to them, "I do not know the man." Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the words Jesus had spoken, "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people came to the decision to put Jesus to death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and it was the governor's custom at the feast to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For he knew it was out of envy that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him a message, "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the 2 do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called Christ?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "Let his blood be on us and on our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand and knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said. They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him.
Blessed is Jesus.
As they were going out to crucify Jesus, who was carrying his cross, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. There they offered Jesus wine to drink mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots, and sitting down, they kept watch over him there. Above his head they placed the written charge against him, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders mocked him. "Saved others," they said, "but he cannot save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" In the same way, the robbers who were crucified with him also heaped insults on him.
The hatred of many is condensed into a barrage of mockery as Jesus is led to Calvary. Simon, a disinterested bystander, is drafted by soldiers to carry the cross of Jesus, perhaps only the heavy crossbeam. At Golgotha, iron spikes are driven through Jesus' wrists into the crossbeam, which is then hoisted by ropes and affixed to the main beam already permanently in place. A small platform is provided for Jesus' feet to relieve some of the pain in his arms, but pressing down on the platform only increases the pain in his feet. Ultimately, there is no relief, but death comes within hours. Unusual, since victims of crucifixion could linger for days. Along with his supposed offenses, the mob hurls its insults at Jesus. Even the robbers crucified on either side of Jesus join in this torrent of hate.
"You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself.
Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God.
He saved others but cannot save himself.
Let him come down now from the cross, and then we will believe in him.
He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him, for he said, 'I am the Son of God.'"
What irony! The very words they use to mock this kindest and most holy of men are all true in one way or another. The temple of his body would indeed be destroyed and raised in 3 days. He is the Son of God, but he cannot come down from the cross because it is through the cross that he saves others. He trusts God, and God will rescue him, but not until he has finished his work. He has already asked that the cup be taken from him, but it is to drink this cup of suffering for the mob, for you and me, that he has come. Only when the cup is emptied will the Father rescue him. But despite the persecution, Jesus endures. His words are not those of lesser men, venomous words of cursing. They are wondrous words from the Psalms, words of forgiveness, words of compassion, words of faith.
2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus said,
Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
I can forgive, but I can never forget. How often have we heard or spoken those words? Can you imagine our dreadful plight if Jesus had spoken those words from the cross? That would have been like a hammer blow coming after being struck by a pillow. I forgive you, but perpetually remember your offenses anyway. Such, praise God, is not the kind of forgiveness Jesus offers sinners. On this mob of liars, mockers, hypocrites, thieves, murderers, and torturers, Jesus bestows words of sweet absolution, total and complete forgiveness. Members of this very mob would be at heaven's portal one day, perhaps with heads bowed, eyes looking downward in shame, saying to Jesus, Lord, with sins such as mine, how can you ever forgive me? And he will reply, what sins? I don't remember any. We remember, but he doesn't. That is the miracle of the first word from the cross. At this time, we will sing the first 3 verses of hymn 112.
One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God?" He said, "Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him,
Truly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise.
The greatest sermon ever preached is given by a criminal. It has all the elements of a gospel message. God is to be feared. We deserve punishment for our unjust deeds, but instead Jesus is being punished though he has done nothing wrong. Therefore, turn to Jesus and ask him to remember you in his kingdom. Ask him to prepare you a place in heaven, and he will. Paradise awaits the vilest offender who truly believes. We continue with verses 4 through 6.
Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother,
Woman, behold your son.
and to the disciple,
Behold your mother.
From that time on, this disciple took her into his home.
For many hours, Jesus has submitted quietly to his torturers. He's had no sleep, no food, no water. He's been beaten and whipped. He's been dragged from courtroom to courtroom. He's been condemned without evidence of crime. He's been forced to carry his own cross, being relieved of that burden only when he kept falling under the weight. Now, nailed to a cross, naked and bleeding, when others would be screaming out curses, he still does not think of himself, but concerns himself with his mother's future. The Gospels indicate that he has half brothers, but as yet there is no evidence they believe in him. It would be wrong for the eldest son to place his mother with family members that might mock her for her faith or try to dissuade her from believing in her divine Son. So Jesus, with brevity dictated by his pain, says, "Behold your son." The text is unclear as to whether he is calling upon Mary to contemplate his helpless condition or whether he is directing her attention to John, Jesus' closest and most trusted friend, asking her now to consider John the son who will care for her in her old age. Either way, his words have the desired effect. John does the work Jesus can no longer do. He fulfills the elder son's role, taking Mary into his own home that she might be cared for in her old age. Verses 7 through 9.
From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over all the land. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice,
Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me?
When some of those standing there heard this, they said, "He's calling Elijah."
In the fourth word, some think Jesus is crying out in despair to his Father, whom he discovers is no longer there. It is thought that Jesus is now charged with the guilt of the whole world's sin, yours and mine. As such, he is now accounted wholly evil and under God's curse. A holy and righteous God cannot look upon nor tolerate sin in his presence. And so the divine Son of God, who has become sin for us, is now separated from his Father. as the cry for mercy of a thief. He has a human mother whose old age concerns him deeply. He has a mouth, by now dry and swollen, caked with blood and dirt, a tongue hardly able to articulate words. Like you and me, he begs for drink. But water isn't what is offered. Instead, it's the cheap wine issued to soldiers. One of them, perhaps the centurion, mercifully offers Jesus a sponge saturated with the sour-tasting stuff. This is not yet another insult, but a gift, perhaps a token of a heart that is changing. Verses 13 through 15.
When he had received the drink, Jesus said,
"It is finished."
With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit.
3 words in English, but this most powerful of proclamations is just one word in Greek, tetelestai. It is a word full of significance for every man, woman, and child on earth that has or will ever live. Tetelestai. It is finished. The saving work of Christ is forever completed. His death has satisfied all the demands of God's law. A marvelous exchange has taken place. Christ's righteousness is our righteousness. His death is our death. No charge, no accusation of the devil against us will ever stand. The penalty for all our sin has been paid in full, forever.
It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. For the sun stopped shining, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice,
"Father, into your hands I commit my spirit."
When he had said this, he breathed his last. When the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus heard his cry and saw how he died, he said, "Surely this man was the Son of God."
Just as we each are allotted a certain number of heartbeats, a certain number of breaths, so the Son of God breathed one last time, committing his spirit into the waiting and loving hands of his Father. Breath, spirit, life itself leaves his body, at once human and divine. In some incomprehensible miracle, the Son of God, eternally one God with the Father, dies. The whole world senses with awe that something profound has happened. The sky darkens. There's an earthquake. Tombs break open. The veil in the temple separating the Holy of Holies from sinners is ripped in two from top to bottom. The centurion in charge of the crucifixion echoes the thoughts of perhaps many who witnessed the events. Truly, this was the Son of God. Blessed is Jesus.
Later, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus. Now Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, because he feared the Jews. With Pilate's permission, he came and took the body away. He was accompanied by Nicodemus, the man who earlier had visited Jesus at night. Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds. Taking Jesus' body, the two of them wrapped it with spices in strips of linen. This was in accordance with Jewish burial customs. At the place where Jesus was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb, in which no one had ever been laid. Because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and since the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there.
Jesus is dead. It is a kind thing that Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus do for the one they had quietly believed in. It is a respectful and honorable thing, but it also signifies the end of hope. These godly men were saying their last goodbyes to Jesus, intending to lay both him and their hopes to rest forever. Nearby are three women, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jesus, watching to see where Jesus is laid, intending to return after the Sabbath to finish the burial preparations begun by Joseph and Nicodemus. No one, despite the frequent reassurance of Jesus that he would be raised to life, expected the miracle that would happen just 3 days hence. Blessed is Jesus who was persecuted because of righteousness.
Has obtained the kingdom of heaven.
Blessed is Jesus insulted for us, persecuted for us, and falsely accused of all kinds of evil, that we might be saved.
Rejoice and be glad, because of his suffering, the kingdom of heaven is mine.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever.